The stars outside station were beautiful that morning. Doctor stood by the observation window with a cup of coffee in her hands. She watched the distant nebula glow with soft purple and blue colors. It was peaceful. It was quiet. She had no idea that in less than 1 hour, everything would change forever. Station floated at the edge of human space. It was a research station, not a military base. 400 people lived and worked there. Scientists, engineers, doctors, and support staff. They studied alien plants, strange rocks from distant moons, and the mysteries of deep space. They were explorers, not soldiers. Captain Park was the station commander. He was 52 years old with gray hair and calm eyes. He had served in the Terran Navy for 30 years before taking this quiet post. He thought his days of danger were over. He was wrong. His younger brother, Lieutenant, worked in the communications center. He was 28 years old, always smiling, always making jokes. He had followed his sister to the edge of the galaxy because he believed in her work. Every morning, he would bring her breakfast and tease her about working too hard. That morning, walked into the observation deck with a tray of food. He smiled at his sister. "You forgot to eat again," he said. "What kind of scientist forgets basic survival?" Laughed and took the tray. The kind who is about to make a breakthrough in alien biology. They sat together and talked about small things. Their parents back on Earth. The letter was writing to his girlfriend. The strange fish-like creature had discovered in samples from a nearby moon. Then the alarm started. The sound cut through the station like a knife. Red lights flashed. Captain's voice came over the speakers, calm but urgent. "All personnel to emergency stations. Unknown vessels approaching. This is not a drill." Jumped to his feet. "I have to get to communications," he said. He hugged his sister quickly. "Stay safe. I'll find you when this is over." Watched him run. She did not know it would be the last time she would see him alive. In the command center, Captain watched his screens with growing horror. 12 ships had appeared from nowhere. They were large, dark, and covered with weapons. He recognized the design immediately. Warships. They were known across the galaxy. They were raiders, slavers, killers. They attacked weak targets, took what they wanted, and left nothing behind. For centuries, other species had learned to pay them tribute or suffer the consequences. Humans had heard the stories but had never faced them directly. Until now. A transmission came through. The screen showed a creature that made its blood run cold. Lord was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His eyes were black and empty. When he smiled, his mouth was full of sharp teeth. "Human commander," said. His voice was like metal scraping against stone. "I am Lord of the Dominion. You have something we want, your research, your technology. Give it to us and some of you may live. Refuse and we will take it anyway. The choice is yours." Captain looked at his crew. Young faces, scared faces. Scientists who had never fired a weapon. He thought about his family back on Earth. He thought about everything he believed in. "This is Captain Park," he said into the microphone. "Station is a civilian research facility. We are not a military target. Leave now and there will be no conflict." Laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You misunderstand, human. I am not asking, I am telling." The first missiles hit the station 30 seconds later. The attack was fast and brutal. They did not want to destroy the station completely. They wanted to break it, scare it, and make the humans surrender. But humans did not surrender easily. Captain ordered all civilians to the emergency shelters. Security teams grabbed whatever weapons they could find. They were not trained for this kind of fight, but they fought anyway. In the communications center, worked desperately. His fingers flew across the controls as explosions shook the station around him. He had one job now: send a message to Earth, tell them what was happening, make sure someone would know. "Emergency transmission to Terran Command," he said into the recorder. "This is Station. We are under attack by forces. They are killing civilians. Please send help. Please remember us." He attached all the video recordings from the station's cameras. Every death, every scream, every moment of horror. He wanted Earth to see exactly what they were doing. The door to the communications center exploded inward. 3 soldiers rushed in with weapons raised, stood up from his console. The transmission was sent. His job was done. "The message went out," he said quietly. "You're too late." The lead shot him twice in the chest. Felt it somehow. She was in the emergency shelter with dozens of other civilians when she suddenly couldn't breathe. Her heart hurt like something had been torn out of it. She knew, even before she heard the news, her brother was gone. The battle lasted 45 minutes. Station security killed 19 soldiers, but it was not enough. The aliens were too many, too strong, too well-armed. When the shooting finally stopped, 312 humans were dead. Bodies lay in the hallways. Blood covered the walls. Captain was executed on the command deck. He refused to kneel. Lord shot him personally. The 88 survivors were gathered in the cargo bay. They were bruised, bloody, and terrified. Guards surrounded them with weapons ready. Lord walked among them slowly, looking at each face. He stopped in front of. She stared back at him with eyes full of hate. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. "You have fire in you," said. He sounded amused. "I like that. You will be valuable." Said nothing, but she made a promise to herself in that moment. She would survive. She would remember every face, every death, every crime. And someday, somehow, she would make them pay. As the survivors were loaded onto transport ships, sent a message to the galaxy. He showed the prisoners. He showed the destroyed station. He announced his demands: 10 billion credits and all human research data, standard procedure. Every other species had paid when faced with such demands. "The humans have 1 month to respond," announced. "If they refuse, we will execute 1 prisoner every day until they agree. This is how the galaxy works. Even the newcomers must learn." He was very confident. They had done this 100 times before. No one ever refused. No one ever fought back. The cost was too high. But Lord had made a terrible mistake. He did not understand humans. He did not know that somewhere across the stars, his message had reached Earth. Every second of the massacre, every death, every laugh from soldiers as they killed innocent people. And Earth was watching. The message from station arrived on Earth at 3:47 in the morning. It went directly to Terran Command, the military headquarters located deep beneath the mountains of Korea. Within minutes, alarms were ringing in bedrooms across the planet. The most powerful people in human civilization were being woken up. Admiral was the first to arrive at the command center. He was 61 years old, tall and thin, with a face that rarely showed emotion. He had commanded the Terran Defense Fleet for 15 years. He had seen many terrible things in his career, but nothing prepared him for what he saw that night. The recording played on a massive screen. 400 people going about their normal day, the alarms starting, the panic, the attack. Admiral watched in complete silence as soldiers murdered scientists who had never held a weapon. He watched Captain refuse to kneel. He watched a young communications officer send out the final message before being shot. When the recording ended, the room was completely silent. Staff officers stood frozen at their stations. Some had tears on their faces. Others looked like they wanted to be sick. Admiral's face showed nothing, but his hands, hidden beneath the table, were shaking with rage. "Get me the Council," he said quietly. "All of them now." The United Terran Council was the governing body of human space. 12 representatives from the major regions of Earth and the colonies. They made decisions about war and peace, about the future of humanity among the stars. Within 2 hours, they were all gathered in the Great Chamber, watching the same recording that Admiral had seen. Director sat in the corner, watching everything with sharp eyes. She was 45 years old and ran Terran Intelligence, the spy network that kept humanity informed about threats across the galaxy. She was small and quiet, the kind of person you would forget was in the room. That was exactly how she liked it. While the council members wiped their eyes and whispered to each other was already working. Her agents across the galaxy were gathering information. Where were the ships now? How many soldiers did they have? What were their weaknesses? She would have answers within hours. The council chairman, an old man named, finally spoke. "This is a tragedy," he said. "A terrible tragedy. We must respond carefully. They are powerful and we are still new to this galaxy." "We should negotiate," said another council member. "Pay the ransom, get our people back. We cannot afford a war." Admiral stood up slowly. Every eye in the room turned to him. "With respect," he said, his voice cold as ice, "I watched 312 of our people die on that recording. I watched them laugh while they did it. And you want to pay them." "Admiral, we must be practical." "Practical?" His voice rose slightly. "Let me tell you what is practical. If we pay them, they will come back. They will attack another station, another colony, another ship. They will kill more of our people and demand more money. This is how they operate. This is what they have done to every species in this galaxy. And every species has paid. Every species has bent the knee." He looked around the room, meeting every pair of eyes. "I will not bend my knee to murderers. Not today, not ever." The chamber doors opened and a strange figure walked in. It was Ambassador X of the Syndicate, a member of the Galactic Assembly. He was tall and thin, with blue skin and large black eyes. He walked like someone who was used to being important. "Honored humans," X said smoothly. "The Galactic Assembly has sent me to offer guidance. We understand this is difficult for your young species, but you must understand how things work in our galaxy." "Please explain," Chairman said. "They are raiders. This is their nature. They attack, they take, they demand, but they are also businessmen. They always honor their deals. Pay the ransom and your people will be returned. Refuse and they will be killed. This is simple. This is how it has always been done." Admiral stared at the alien ambassador. "And you accept this? Your species just pays tribute to murderers?" X shrugged his narrow shoulders. "It is cheaper than war. We lose a few people, a few ships, some money, but our civilization continues. This is wisdom. This is survival. This is cowardice." The room went silent. X's large eyes blinked several times. No one had ever spoken to him like that. Director finally stepped forward. She held a data pad in her hands. "I have new information," she said calmly. "The fleet is hiding in the nebula. 88 human prisoners are confirmed alive aboard Lord's flagship. I have exact coordinates." Chairman looked between and, "What are you suggesting?" Admiral turned to face the council directly. "I am suggesting that we show the galaxy what happens when you murder human beings. I am suggesting that we hunt down every ship in that fleet and destroy them. I am suggesting that we rescue our people and execute the creature who ordered this attack." "That is madness," X said quickly. "They have hundreds of ships. They have been raiding for 1,000 years. You cannot simply—" "We can," interrupted, "and we will." He looked at the council chairman. "Sir, I request formal authorization to deploy the Terran Defense Fleet. Full military response. No negotiations. No surrender. We end this threat permanently." Chairman was quiet for a long moment. He was an old man and he had seen many things in his life. He had always believed in peace, in talking, in finding common ground. But the recording he had watched was still burned into his mind. The screams, the laughter, the young officer sending his final message before dying. "Do it," he said quietly. "Save our people, and make sure this never happens again." Admiral nodded once. He turned to leave, but X grabbed his arm. "You don't understand," the ambassador said urgently. "If you do this, you will make enemies of every raider faction in the galaxy. They will unite against you. You will face wars on every front." Looked down at the alien's hand on his arm. Then he looked up at his face. "Good," he said. "Let them come. and let them bring friends, because I want the entire galaxy to see what happens to anyone who touches human civilians." He pulled his arm free and walked toward the door. Before he left, he stopped and spoke without turning around. "Tell your galactic assembly something for me. From this moment forward, humanity operates under a new doctrine. We call it absolute retaliation. Any species that kills human civilians will face total military response. No negotiations, no ransoms, no mercy. We will find them, we will destroy them, and we will make sure they never threaten anyone again." Ambassador X stood frozen in place. In all his years of diplomatic service, he had never heard anything like this. Every species negotiated. Every species made deals. Every species accepted that some losses were inevitable. But these humans were different. They were either incredibly brave or completely insane. Perhaps both. Director walked past him toward the door. She paused briefly beside him. "I would suggest you leave human space," she said politely. "Things are about to get very interesting, and I would hate for you to be caught in the middle." Within hours, the Terran Defense Fleet began to move. 200 warships, 50,000 soldiers, the largest military operation in human history. And across the galaxy, Lord sat in his flagship, completely unaware of what was coming. He was counting his future profits and planning his next raid. He expected the humans to pay within days. That was how it always worked. He had no idea that death was already on its way. The nebula was a place that most ships avoided. It was a massive cloud of gas and dust, filled with radiation storms and gravity wells that could tear a ship apart. Pirates and raiders had used it as a hiding place for centuries. No government had ever tried to clean it out. The cost was too high, the danger too great. Lord sat on his throne aboard the flagship Pride of. It was the largest ship in his fleet, armed with enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Around him, his officers worked at their stations, monitoring the nebula and watching for any sign of trouble. There was none, there never was. The nebula was safe, untouchable. Looked at the holographic display showing his prisoners. 88 humans in the cargo hold, guarded by his best soldiers. They were valuable. The ransom demand had been sent. Now all he had to do was wait. "The humans are weak," he said to his second-in-command, a veteran named Krill. "They will pay. They always pay." Krill nodded, but there was something in his eyes. Doubt, perhaps. "My lord, the reports from our scouts are strange. The humans are not sending diplomats. They are sending warships." Laughed. "Warships? To the nebula? Impossible. No fleet can navigate this region without being torn apart." The humans seem to think differently. "Then they are fools, and they will die as fools." Waved his hand dismissively. "Increase the patrols. If any human ship enters the nebula, destroy it immediately." Far across human space, Commander Hand stood in the briefing room of the TFS Silent Verdict. It was a stealth cruiser, one of the most advanced ships in the Terran Navy. Black, silent, and nearly invisible to sensors. It was designed for one purpose: to go where no one expected and do what no one thought possible. Was 40 years old, with short black hair and a scar across his left cheek. He had spent 20 years in special operations, doing the jobs that never appeared in official records. Rescues, assassinations, sabotage. He was very good at his work. Director's face appeared on the briefing screen. "Commander, your mission is simple. Get to the flagship before the main fleet arrives. Extract the prisoners. Get out." "What about Lord?" "Leave him for Admiral. The Admiral wants to handle that personally." Nodded, he understood. Some things needed to be done publicly. The galaxy needed to see what happened too, but first the prisoners had to be safe. "My team is ready," said. "Give me the coordinates." The Silent Verdict had a crew of 30, but only 8 would go on the actual mission. Had chosen them personally. They were the best soldiers he had ever served with. Sergeant Ara was his demolitions expert. She was 32 years old, small and quiet, with steady hands that could build or destroy anything. She had blown up enemy bases, bridges, and once an entire underground bunker system. If something needed to explode, Ara made it happen. Corporal Lee was the team medic. He was young, only 26, but he had saved more lives than doctors twice his age. He could perform surgery in a moving vehicle during an earthquake. Nothing made him panic. The others were equally skilled. Snipers, hackers, close combat specialists. Each one had been tested in dozens of operations. Each one had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not come back. Gathered them in the cargo bay as the silent verdict prepared to enter the nebula. "You've all seen the recording from station," he said. "You know what these creatures did. You know why we're here." The soldiers nodded silently. "Our mission is rescue, not revenge. We get in, we find our people, we get out. The fleet will handle the rest." He paused. "But if any get in our way, we put them down. Hard questions." Sergeant Ara raised her hand. "How many guards on the prisoners?" "Intelligence says about 50 in the immediate area. Another 200 on the ship overall." "So 8 of us against 250 aliens." Ara smiled slightly. "I like those odds." The crew laughed quietly. It broke the tension, smiled too. "Let's bring our people home." While the silent verdict crept through the nebula, Lord made his next move. He broadcast a new message to the galaxy. The screen showed him standing in front of the human prisoners. They looked tired, scared, but defiant. One woman in particular caught the attention of everyone watching. Doctor stood at the front of the group, staring directly at the camera with eyes full of cold fury. "Humans of Earth," said, "your deadline approaches. Pay the ransom or I will begin executing prisoners. 1 per day until you comply. This is not a threat. This is a promise." He grabbed by the arm and pulled her forward. "Perhaps I will start with this one. She has fire in her. I would enjoy breaking that spirit." Looked at him with disgust. Then she looked directly at the camera. "Earth," she said clearly, "do not pay them anything, not 1 credit, not 1 piece of data. These creatures murdered my brother. They murdered 300 of our people. They recorded it and laughed." Struck her across the face. She fell to the ground but kept talking. "Find them, destroy them, all of them. That is what we want. That is what we all want. Do not negotiate with." Kicked her, silencing her. He looked at the camera, his black eyes filled with anger. "Defiant to the end. It will not matter. Pay the ransom, humans. You have 3 days." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched in silence. Some were horrified. Some were impressed by the human woman's courage. And some were beginning to wonder if the galaxy was about to change forever. In his office on Earth, Admiral watched the recording 3 times. Each time his face showed no emotion, but his hands gripped the edge of his desk so hard that the wood cracked. 2 days, he said to Director, who stood beside him. "We arrive in 2 days." "The rescue team will be in position before then," replied. "Commander is very good at his job." "He'd better be." Looked at the frozen image on his screen. "That woman just gave a death sentence on live broadcast, and I intend to deliver it." Deep in the nebula, the silent verdict moved like a ghost. It slipped between radiation storms and around gravity wells, following a path that Director's agents had spent weeks mapping. The crew worked in near silence, every system set to minimum power to avoid detection. Commander stood on the bridge watching the sensors. Somewhere ahead in the heart of this cosmic nightmare, 88 humans were waiting. They were counting on him. They were counting on Earth. He would not fail them. "Patrol," the sensor officer whispered. 3 ships bearing north, they haven't seen us." "Maintain current course," ordered. "Let them pass." The patrol ships drifted by, completely unaware that death was passing within kilometers of their position. The silent verdict continued forward, deeper into enemy territory, closer to its target. In the cargo hold of the Pride of Dr. lay on the cold floor. Her face was bruised from blows and her ribs ached from his kick, but she was smiling. She had sent her message, Earth had heard her, and she knew somehow that help was coming. She just had to stay alive long enough for it to arrive. The Pride of floated in the center of the fleet like a king surrounded by his soldiers. 47 warships formed a protective ring around the flagship, their weapons pointed outward at the swirling chaos of the nebula. Lord believed himself untouchable. He was wrong. 3 kilometers away, hidden in a field of floating debris, the silent verdict waited. Commander Hand studied the enemy formation through the ship's sensors. He had memorized every detail of the flagship from intelligence reports. The cargo hold was on Deck 7, near the back of the ship. 2 main corridors led to it. Both were heavily guarded. "We go in through the waste disposal system," told his team. "It connects to the maintenance tunnels on Deck 6. From there, we climb down to the cargo hold." Sergeant Ara wrinkled her nose. "Waste disposal, really? Would you prefer the front door?" "No, sir. Waste disposal is perfect." The team suited up in their combat armor. Black, lightweight, designed for silence and speed. Each soldier carried a rifle, a sidearm, and a combat knife. Ara had additional explosives strapped to her chest. Corporal Lee carried a medical kit that could handle almost any injury. They boarded a small shuttle and launched into the darkness. No lights, no engine heat. They drifted toward the flagship like a piece of debris, invisible among the rocks and dust that filled the nebula. Inside the cargo hold, Doctor had been busy. She had spent her time studying their guards, learning their routines, their habits, their weaknesses. She was, after all, understanding alien species was her job. She had shared her observations with the other prisoners. The guards changed shifts every 6 hours. They were most relaxed in the 4th hour when they got bored. The door controls were on the left side, vulnerable to anyone who could reach them. They had poor peripheral vision but excellent hearing. "When the time comes," she whispered to a young engineer named, "we need to be ready to move." "Ready for what?" asked. "We have no weapons, we're locked in a cargo hold." "Something is coming, I can feel it." Looked at the ceiling. Earth heard my message, they wouldn't just ignore it. Looked doubtful but said nothing. He wanted to believe her. They all did. The rescue shuttle attached to the Pride of without a sound. The waste disposal port was exactly where the intelligence said it would be. Cut through the outer seal while his team covered the approach. Within minutes, they were inside. The smell was terrible. Waste was worse than anything humans produced, but the team moved through it without complaint. They had a job to do. "Maintenance tunnel ahead," whispered into his communicator. "Ara, take point." Sergeant Ara moved forward with her weapon raised. The tunnel was dark and narrow, barely wide enough for one person. Perfect for avoiding detection. Terrible for fighting. They needed to stay invisible. They climbed down 2 levels through access shafts. The ship hummed around them, full of alien sounds and distant voices. Several times they heard soldiers walking past, and they pressed themselves against the walls, barely breathing. Finally, they reached Deck 7. Checked his scanner. "Cargo hold is 50 meters ahead. I'm reading. 46 life signs, 8 guards visible, more in the surrounding corridors." "Prisoners?" asked. 88 human signals, all alive." Allowed himself a small smile. "Let's keep them that way." The plan was simple. Ara would plant explosives at 3 points around the cargo hold. When they detonated, the lights would go out and the doors would open. The team would enter, eliminate the guards, and extract the prisoners. A secondary shuttle was waiting at an emergency airlock 200 meters away. Simple in theory. In practice, everything could go wrong. Ara moved to plant her first charge. She was silent, professional, her hands steady. The explosive was small but powerful, designed to blow circuits without killing anyone nearby. "First charge set," she whispered. She moved to the second position. A guard was standing nearby, looking at something on his device. Ara waited until he turned away, then placed the charge and disappeared into the shadows. Second charge set. The third position was the most dangerous. It was right next to the main door, in full view of anyone walking past. Ara waited for several minutes, watching the patrol patterns. Then she moved. She was 2 steps from the target when a guard turned the corner unexpectedly. For a moment they stared at each other. The guard's black eyes widened with surprise. His mouth opened to shout in alarm. Ara's knife was faster. She closed the distance in a heartbeat and drove the blade into the guard's throat. He died without making a sound. She caught his body before it could fall and dragged it into a side corridor. Third charge set, she said calmly. Minor complication resolved. Inside the cargo hold, suddenly felt something change. A vibration in the floor, a shift in the air. She looked at the other prisoners and saw that some of them felt it too. Everyone, she said quietly, get ready to move. Stay together. Follow me when the time comes. Follow you where? Someone asked. Away from here. The lights went out. 3 explosions rocked the cargo hold. The guards shouted in confusion, spinning around, trying to find a target. Emergency lights flickered on, dim and red, casting everything in shadow. Commander's team came through the doors like ghosts. Their weapons made soft sounds, barely louder than whispers. One guard fell, then another, then another. Didn't wait. She grabbed a piece of metal that she had hidden under her clothes and ran toward the nearest guard. He was turning, raising his weapon when she drove the metal into his eye. He screamed and fell. Another guard tried to grab her. A bullet from somewhere took off his head. Prisoners, move, shouted. Follow my team, stay low. The prisoners ran. Some were crying. Some were silent with shock, but they all moved, driven by pure survival instinct. Corporal appeared beside. Doctor, I'm your medic. Are you injured? Bruises, nothing serious. Kept moving, pulling other prisoners along with her. Get the others out. Some of them are in bad shape. The team formed a protective ring around the prisoners as they moved through the corridors. More soldiers appeared, drawn by the explosions and gunfire. Ara's rifle barked again and again. Bodies fell. Contact left, someone shouted. Contact rear. Keep moving, don't stop. They reached the emergency airlock. The shuttle was there, engines running, doors open. Prisoners poured inside, climbing over each other in their desperation to escape. Stopped at the airlock door. She looked back at the chaos behind them. Soldiers were closing in from multiple directions. Everyone's aboard, said, let's go. How many did we lose? None. All 88 prisoners are accounted for. Took a deep breath. For the first time since the attack on station, she felt something like hope. Commander was the last one through the airlock. He sealed the door behind him and hit the release button. The shuttle detached and shot away from the Pride of. Through the window, watched the massive ship grow smaller. She thought about her brother dying in the communications center. She thought about Captain refusing to kneel. She thought about all the people who would never come home. Commander, she said to, what happens now? Looked at his watch. In approximately 6 hours, Admiral arrives with 200 warships. And then, Doctor, the galaxy is going to learn what happens when you hurt human civilians. Nodded slowly. Good. She looked back at the fleet one more time. Lord was probably screaming with rage right now, ordering his ships to search for the escaped prisoners. He had no idea what was coming. Don't let any of them leave this nebula, said quietly. Looked at her with something like respect. That's the plan. The shuttle disappeared into the nebula, carrying 88 survivors toward safety. Behind them, the fleet waited in ignorance. Their time was running out. Lord stood in the cargo hold where his prisoners had been, staring at the bodies of his guards. 47 dead. Their blood covered the floor. The humans were gone. For the first time in his long life, felt something he had never experienced before: fear. "Find them," he screamed at his officers. "Search every ship, every asteroid, every corner of this nebula. I want those prisoners back." But even as his fleet scattered to search, the sensors began to scream. Ships were entering the nebula. Many ships, more ships than had ever seen in one place. "Report," he demanded. His sensor officer's voice was shaking. "My lord, I am reading 200 vessels, Terran military signatures. They are surrounding us." 200? Impossible. No fleet could navigate the nebula. No species had ever tried to enter this region with such force. Rushed to the command deck and looked at the display. The human fleet filled the screen. Massive warships, sleek destroyers, support vessels. They emerged from the swirling gas clouds like predators rising from deep water, and they kept coming, more and more until the fleet was completely surrounded. A transmission came through. Screen flickered, and then he was looking at a human face. The man was old, with gray hair and cold eyes. He wore a military uniform covered with medals. He looked at the way a person might look at an insect. "Lord," the human said, "I am Admiral of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your prisoners have been recovered, all 88 of them, alive." Tried to speak, but his throat was dry. He swallowed hard. "Admiral, I am pleased to hear that. Perhaps we can discuss a peaceful resolution to this misunderstanding." His expression did not change. "There will be no discussion. Surely we can negotiate. I am a reasonable being. I can offer you compensation for the unfortunate incident at your station, credits, territory, whatever you desire. You killed 312 of my people. You recorded it. You laughed while doing it. And now you want to negotiate." His mind raced. This was not how things worked. Every species negotiated. Every species could be bought. He just had to find the right price. "Name your terms," he said desperately. "Anything, I will give you anything." Admiral leaned forward slightly. His voice dropped to something almost soft. "Lord, let me explain something to you. In my culture, we have a concept. We call it justice. When someone harms our people, we do not ask for payment. We do not accept apologies. We make sure they can never harm anyone again." "Admiral, please." "Your fleet has 30 seconds to surrender unconditionally. Any ship that fires a weapon will be destroyed. Any ship that tries to run will be destroyed. Any ship that resists in any way will be destroyed. Choose now." The transmission ended. Looked at his officers. Some of them were already moving toward escape pods. Others were frozen with fear. His second-in-command, Krill, stepped forward. "My lord, we should surrender. We cannot win this fight." "Surrender?" His voice cracked with anger and terror. "To humans, to these primitive newcomers, never." He grabbed the weapons control console and began targeting the nearest human ship. "All vessels, open fire, kill them all." The fleet responded with everything they had. Thousands of missiles and energy beams shot toward the human formation. It was the most firepower had ever commanded. It was not enough. The human ships moved with perfect coordination. Point defense systems shot down missiles before they could reach their targets. Shields absorbed energy beams without failing. And then the humans fired back. The first destroyer exploded in a ball of fire. Then another. Then another. Human weapons cut through armor like it was made of paper. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries were torn apart in seconds. Watched in horror as his fleet was destroyed around him. 47 ships became 30, then 20, then 10. "Retreat," he finally screamed. "All ships retreat." But there was nowhere to go. The human fleet had surrounded them completely. Every escape route was blocked. Every path led to more human weapons. The Pride shook as missiles struck its hull. Explosions ripped through the lower decks. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the ship. Hull breach on decks 3 through 6. Engineering is on fire. We're losing power. Fell from his throne as the ship rocked again. He crawled across the floor, trying to reach the escape pod bay. Behind him, his bridge crew died as the ceiling collapsed. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, not a single ship remained operational. 47 vessels destroyed. 12,000 soldiers dead. The greatest raider fleet in the galaxy had been completely eliminated. Admiral watched the final moments from his command ship. When the last vessel stopped firing, he turned to his communications officer. "Send a team to board the flagship. I want Lord alive." "Yes, sir. What do we do with survivors?" Considered the question for a long moment. "Those who surrender will be taken prisoner. Those who resist will be eliminated." The boarding team found Lord hiding in a storage closet near the escape pods. He was wounded, bleeding from a cut on his head. His fine clothes were torn and dirty. He looked nothing like the proud warlord who had demanded ransom from humanity just days before. They dragged him to the cargo hold, the same place where he had kept his human prisoners. Admiral arrived minutes later, walking through the damaged corridors with his personal guard. Looked up at the human admiral. He tried to stand, but his legs were too weak. He fell back to his knees. "Please," he whispered, "I can give you information. I know where other raider fleets hide. I know secrets. I can be useful to you." Looked down at him without expression. "You were useful to me already. You showed the galaxy what humans do to those who murder our people. It was business, just business. Nothing personal, please understand." 312 lives. His voice was cold as space itself. Mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, scientists who wanted to explore the stars, engineers who wanted to build things, a young man who died sending a message so the galaxy would know what you did, just business. Began to weep, tears streamed down his gray face. "I didn't know, I didn't understand, please give me another chance. I will change, I will be different." Admiral knelt down so he was face to face with the creature who had caused so much suffering. He spoke quietly, almost gently. "Lord, in my culture, we believe in something called accountability. When you do wrong, you must face the consequences. You cannot buy your way out. You cannot talk your way out. You must answer for what you did." He stood up slowly. "You murdered our people. You recorded their deaths for entertainment. You demanded money for their lives. And now you want mercy." Shook his head. "Humans do not negotiate with killers. We execute them." He drew his sidearm, screamed and tried to crawl away, but there was nowhere to go. The sound of the shot echoed through the cargo hold. The recording of Lord's death was broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. Every species saw it. Every raider faction, every slaver, every pirate who had ever thought humans might be easy targets. They saw a proud warlord weeping on his knees. They saw a human admiral standing over him, without emotion. They heard the final words. Humans do not negotiate with killers. They saw justice delivered. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the predators of the galaxy felt fear.